Today is Tuesday, May 2nd. America's lawmakers need to make a deal, and time is running out. We'll explain what's at stake if they can't address the debt ceiling in the next few weeks. Also, we'll tell you about the second largest bank failure in American history and what regulators now want to change about the whole system. Plus, AI that can turn people's thoughts into text. A writer's strike that could impact your favorite TV show. And one of the world's most famous rock groups calling it quits, but not before one last tour. Those stories and more news to know today coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. It looks like the U.S. could hit the debt ceiling much sooner than expected. U.S. Treasury Secretary now says the country might be less than a month away from not being able to pay its bills for the first time in history. Remember, the debt ceiling is not about whether to spend more money, but how to pay the bills the U.S. has already racked up, since the government tends to spend more than it collects. Congress has faced many battles over the debt ceiling before, but lawmakers have always figured things out in time. If lawmakers cannot make a deal this time, it could disrupt financial markets all around the world and mean a pause on paying for a variety of government programs, including Social Security. A deal was supposed to happen back in January, but was put off using extraordinary measures. Now, the deadline is June 1st, and there are only 8 days this month when both the House and Senate will be in session at the same time. So President Biden is bringing together the so-called Big Four powerful congressional leaders to the White House to talk debt limit soon. Just last week, a Republican bill passed the House that would raise the debt limit, but it was tied to cutting government funding. President Biden and some Dems don't want any of those conditions attached, so that bill faces almost no chance of passing in the Democrat-controlled Senate. Still, it was the GOP's way of getting to the negotiating table. And there are some Dems who say they are open to a compromise that includes some cuts, but not as many as what the Republicans are calling for. President Biden's meeting with the Big Four is expected to happen next week. It's now officially the largest American bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis. Regulators seized First Republic Bank and sold its assets to JP Chase. That means JP Morgan now has access to First Republic's coveted wealthy client base. JP Morgan paid the FDIC $10.6 billion to get that access, but the deal will still cost the FDIC's deposit insurance fund about $13 billion. President Biden praised the deal for protecting bank customers without making taxpayers foot the bill, at least not directly. But not everyone is a fan. Some analysts and industry experts tell Reuters this just helps one of the biggest banks get stronger and makes it harder for smaller banks to do business. After news of the deal came out, shares of JP Chase rose 2%, while those of mid-tier banks fell. Even though the Biden administration did praise the deal, it's also calling for stronger banking regulation. The FDIC issued a report outlining possible changes to the country's deposit system. It's pushing for a targeted increase in the insurance limit for certain business accounts, limits on rapid bank withdrawals, and more. Though any actual change to the system would require approval from Congress. Stay tuned. The feud between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Disney just keeps escalating. A board appointed by the governor just decided to file a counter lawsuit against the Walt Disney Company. This issue stems from legislation Florida lawmakers passed last year. It ended the special district around Disney World that had been letting Disney basically govern itself. And ever since, Disney has been clashing with the people who are now supposed to have oversight. Last week, it was Disney that sued, accusing the state of Florida of, quote, weaponizing its power to inflict political punishment, saying things were only changed because Disney voiced a political opinion. Then this week, the new board sued back, accusing Disney of striking backroom deals with the last board that it effectively controlled. Those deals apparently locked in zoning, infrastructure, and other approvals that Disney might need to expand the Disney World resort. Disney has not commented on this latest suit yet, but now it seems both lawsuits are going to be playing out at the same time. Speaking of lawsuits, we have a quick update about Montana's first transgender lawmaker who got censured last week for condemning her colleagues over a trans rights issue. State Rep Zoe Zephyr decided to sue with the help of the ACLU. The lawsuit says House leadership targeted her and denied the people who live in her district representation this session. In response, the state accused the ACLU of trying to use the courts to interfere with the legislative process. To be continued. It is another turning point now in the federal government's pandemic response. the White House announced it's getting ready to lift COVID-19 vaccine requirements. Next week, vaccine mandates will end for federal workers, contractors, international travelers, and healthcare workers at many hospitals. In a statement, the White House explained it's just in a different phase of its response. Worldwide, deaths from COVID-19 are at their lowest level since the beginning of the pandemic. So the Biden administration says strict rules are no longer needed. Other COVID-19 vaccine mandates have already been relaxed by colleges, private companies, and local and state governments. Even more COVID-19 policies will begin to unwind soon, with the end of the official public health emergency next week. We have much more news for you still coming up. But first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. I'm guessing there have been times in your life that you've felt stretched thin and burnt out. I know I have. When we spend all of our time giving to our work, our family, our friends, it can leave little left for us. And eventually, we have nothing left to give. If you're looking to find more balance in your life or have better boundaries so you can say yes to the things and people you care about, give therapy a try. I've definitely benefited from therapy, especially in times of change, both work-related and personal. Not only is it a place to just talk it all out, you're also talking with a trained professional who can help you identify what's going on and the strategies you may need to improve your life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, BetterHelp is a convenient, flexible option because it's entirely online. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and take advantage of switching therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/newsworthy. Artificial intelligence is apparently getting better at mind reading. Sort of. In a new study published this week, scientists say they learned AI could translate people's private thoughts into words. The technology did not actually replicate each word exactly, but the system was able to get the gist of what a person heard or imagined. Researchers say the AI works by analyzing functional MRI scans that measure the flow of blood to different regions in the brain. The test subjects listened to podcasts while their brains were being scanned, and the AI system ended up churning out a paraphrased version of the stories they heard in those podcasts. In another experiment, the system was able to paraphrase words the people just imagined saying. And in a third, people watched a silent movie to prove the AI could capture not just words, but meaning. The AI was not always spot on. Researchers say this approach is slower and less accurate than other methods scientists have tried, but those typically rely on sensors placed directly on the brain. This method does not even require surgery. So the hope is this will one day help even more people who aren't able to speak because of brain injury or disease. There are some ethical questions, though, like about mental privacy. Scientists say there's no way for the artificial intelligence to read a person's thoughts without their cooperation. Either way, they're going to keep researching. As expected, France saw some pretty huge May Day protests this week, and some of them got out of control. Remember, protests have been happening for months there over a new law that raises the country's retirement age from 62 to 64 years old. And when May Day came around, a day specifically about rallying for labor rights, France ended up dealing with a massive uprising. One union says millions of people turned out. Most were peaceful, but there were some groups of protesters who sparked violence in a few different cities. And more than 100 police officers ended up getting hurt. It's not clear at this point how many protesters got hurt, but nearly 300 people were arrested. Still, union leaders say they're going to keep encouraging protests as long as the new law stands. It's set to go into effect in September. Well, back in the U.S., more than 11,000 of Hollywood's movie and TV writers are now on strike for the first time in 15 years. They're fighting over new contracts with the major studios like Paramount, Universal, Netflix, Amazon, and Apple. And this afternoon, they're going to start walking the picket lines in New York and Los Angeles. The union representing the writers says the boom of streaming services has meant way more production, and with that, worse working conditions. They want companies to staff shows and movies with a certain number of writers for a certain amount of time to ease the workload. They also want limits around the use of artificial intelligence. The studios say they've already offered generous raises for writers, even at a time when they're trying to reel in spending, but plan to keep negotiating. In the meantime, some popular TV shows are likely going off the air. Late-night shows like Saturday Night Live, The Tonight Show, and The Late Show are expected to go dark immediately. Other projects will have to shut down production as well. They might be able to catch up since scripted shows and movies usually get done way in advance. But it just depends on how long this strike lasts. A rock and roll Hall of Fame band is taking its final bow after more than half a century of making music. Aerosmith announced it's going to do one last farewell tour, then that's it. Bandmates Steven Tyler and Joe Perry say they're going to be digging into their lengthy catalog for these last shows together, so expect to hear classics like Crazy, Janie's Got a Gun, and I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. For now, the tour includes 40 stops, but the band says it could add some more cities along the way. So why are they saying farewell now? Well, every founding band member is now over the age of 70. So Perry says, quote, "You never know how much longer everybody's going to be healthy to do this." Tickets for the final tour go on sale this Friday. Then the tour kicks off in September. Well, that's it for our main news today, but now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, I want to let you know about our partner, Castle Flex. I've always experienced the benefits of stretching. Since I grew up dancing, then later I've enjoyed yoga. But now that I've dealt with some lower back pain, I'm realizing that the typical stretches don't always cut it. In fact, I've learned using bands and ropes won't actually pull your toes down and back the way a stretch therapist does it. Well, enter the Castle Flex. It is a patented device that allows the user to hold an easy-to-grip weighted brushed aluminum bar. Then your foot goes into a specially designed foot hammock that pulls your toes into a completely dorsiflexion, allowing your entire leg to get stretched at the exact same time. Instead of just your calf or just your hamstring, every muscle in your leg is firing at the same time from the plantar fascia all the way up to the glutes. When I use it, my entire body feels so much better that same day. And the benefits only increase the more consistent I am with it. Even professional athletes are using this. So check it out at castleflex.com, that's flex with 2 X's, and be sure to use our code NEWS10 for 10% off. Again, get 10% off with the code NEWS10. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, what inspired the creation of Google Images? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. Simply sign up to get it at thenewsworthy.com/email or find the link in today's episode notes. As for last week's trivia question, what percentage of the Earth's wildlife is found in the ocean? The answer is 94%. And that makes sense when you think about the fact that our oceans cover more than 70% of Earth's surface. Scientists estimate that more than 1 million species of animals and plants live in the ocean. But there's still a lot of the ocean we don't know about. Only 5% of it has been explored and charted by humans. The rest of it, especially the depths of the ocean, are a mystery. Thank you so much for listening today. And a quick note to our Newsworthy insiders. Our first Ask Me Anything bonus episode dropped on Sunday, where I'm answering your questions about our production schedule for this podcast, about my go-to productivity apps, and more. So listen if you'd like and reach out to us with your feedback on what bonus content you want in the future. If you're not an insider yet, it's not too late. You can access that bonus episode and ad-free episodes every day for just $5 a month or get a month free when you sign up for the year. Plus, you'll be supporting our work. Start your 7-day free trial in just a few clicks at thenewsworthy.com/insider. All right, we'll be back with another news roundup tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.